Great defeaters, new and old. Welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy. And we are the children of the game. Now, this one was on me. Funny enough, I was here, but I was actually searching for something in the fridge. I couldn't find it. I was very angry, I was very annoyed, and I said, I'm not coming on the stream till I find it. Luckily, I did. So yes, apologies for the few minutes delay, but formalities need to be done. Tony, how are you? How was your weekend? Um, did you watch the FA Cup final by any chance? And the grand
Oh,
arrivals today. I mean, yeah, just asking how was everything?
yeah, I enjoyed the weekend. Spent Sunday. Was it Sunday? Yeah, at Brooker Park. Really enjoyable time. Loads of good music. Yes, I did watch the FA Cup final, and congratulations
Did you get
to
all muddy on Sunday,
Manchester.
by the way?
Sorry.
Did you get all muddy on Sunday?
No, it was all right. It was just little bit of pitter patter, but nothing muddy. Not like Monday. I know Monday was a lot heavier rain.
Okay.
But yeah, it was nice. It was not muddy. And yeah, good boxing action Friday night and Saturday night. So yeah, let's get on.
All right. Well, look, I'm gonna lean heavily on you this week. I did watch most of it, but I'm only giving my attention to three fights. That was Lawrence Okolie, that was Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall, and Chev Clark and Ellis Zorro. Everything else, I will leave in your capable hands. I'll give
Okay.
my 2 pence on a couple bits and pieces, if need be, but the Matchroom card specifically, I didn't even bother watch it back. I saw enough of it to know that it wasn't to the usual standards. The Eye of the Tiger card, aka the top rank card, was pretty much full of a lot of developmental fights, so I wasn't really interested in that. And all the interesting bouts on that card all ended within 2 rounds, so not really much to talk about. Um, yeah, I might talk a little bit about Dina Thorslund, but that's about it. So yeah, over to you. Let's kick it off with, I guess, Lawrence Okolie. And yeah, well, how did you see that, and what was your thoughts?
Yeah, well, look, we were all keen to see the comeback of
Wait,
Lawrence
wait, wait, wait,
Okolie.
wait. Sorry. Stop. We haven't even
The
greeted the
people
great
them, the
defeaters.
people them.
Let me, yeah, let me deal with that, and then we'll come back to that. Philip,
Hmm.
big up, number one in the building today, as usual. Thank you very much, Alexander the Great. Shout out to you, Untraceable, Star Fox WR45E in the building, man like Mulla. Shout out to you. Obviously Tony was in here doing his socials. Dan the man, hardest working guy on X, Dan the man SC15. Thank you very much for being in the building. Hot Prize as well, Daniel J. Boateng, Al Kulia as well. Shout out to you. Thank you very much for being here. Bigsy Biggs, Jay Lanks, G Chain, and I think that's Jonah 31's in the building as well. That's the regulars, just waiting for Yasmin to pop up, hopefully for Karma to pop up. Josh if he's about. But yeah, sorry Tony, take it away.
Yeah, so as I said, we were all keen to see how the comeback was going to be for Lawrence Okolie after he lost his titles to Chris Smith. And yeah, there was a lot of conjecture about whether or not, he'd be back to his old hugging self. But as you can see, the tail of the tape, 19-1 Okolie versus 15-0 for Rosansky. Rosansky obviously a lot older, but Okolie set to work early. And as you can see, we didn't have to wait long before we saw the sledgehammer. Now, the thing I would say about this action, although it's not a lot of it, is you can see clear daylight distance between Okolie and Rosansky. Every time he drops the hammer, there's distance. There's distance. You see that? He's not waiting for the man. He's not timing it wrongly. So he's on top of his man when he throws the punch. He throws the punch at the right distance so he gets leverage and he gets power at the end of the shot where he's able to hurt Rosansky and doesn't end up falling onto the man and negating his own work. Something that, you know, I've been long a critic of the way Lawrence Okolie fights, because too often in the past he's been, you know, too easy to fall into his work and be, you know, untidy. As you can see there, it's all about keeping distance. Use your length, use the length for your levers, keep the jab there, set everything up off the jab. And the two overhand rights that caused the first two knockdowns, I said to my brother as we watched the fight, watch the next one, will be an uppercut. And there it was. What a beauty. And if you look, it's not a short uppercut, it's a kind of half mid-range uppercut, over the hand, and here comes the under. Boom! It's a beautiful shot from Lawrence Okolie. And although Rosansky, to his credit, got up, it was night-night for him. And all I can say is, congratulations, Lawrence Okolie. A fantastic performance. He did extremely well. You know, he looked in great shape. It appears to me that, you know, moving up and adding those extra pounds has had a lot of benefit for him. You know, as you see, Rosansky is quite clearly okay on his feet at the end, but you know, it's a great performance from Okolie. We should be interested to see where he goes next. What are your thoughts, Base?
No, shout out to Okolie. I mean, he goes up in my estimation purely because I stay consistent. Where if I pick you to lose and you win, then you do something, you go up, basically, you go up a level. Now, his skill was never in question as to why I picked against him. I just thought the entire occasion would be out of his will zone. You know, he's been a away fighter in his last fight. We saw how that one came up. This one is an even more partisan crowd than what would have taken place at Bournemouth. And the greatest attribute he had in this one was not allowing Rosansky to allow the crowd to get a foothold in this fight and not allow the referee to be influenced by anything that the crowd were potentially doing. Rosansky, I thought that he would essentially almost lunge in initially and try and swarm Okolie, get his feet in range, and then just sort of try and overwhelm him, come from the outside coming in. And he didn't do that. He actually tried to jab his way in. He was cautious. He was tentative. I don't know how many of his opponents were like that much taller than him, and maybe that could have been a thing. He was wary of the height and the reach. But Okolie did well. He had a good stance. He kept his feet moving well. He was in and out, taking that half step back when he needed to. Stayed in the he sort of stayed on the outside of range, but just to that midpoint where he can get his shot off and Rosansky can't. He started stabbing to the body. It was just a very, very good performance. I don't know how much that Joe Gallagher's, you know, managed to do with him thus far, but the little bits that they've got, it looks like it's working. He definitely seems a much better fit than Sugar Hill Stewart was. And he looks like he's sort of coming back closer to those Shane McGuigan days. So yeah, big credit to Lawrence Okolie. I guess it's one, you know, obviously it's one round, so we don't necessarily know how much better he can be at bridgerweight. Clearly, having to get down to 200 pounds was probably taking a bit of its toll towards the end of things. But yeah, he looks like he's a lot more happy at sort of 220, 224. He still is actually having to cut weight, which obviously isn't necessarily the greatest of things. He should pretty much be bang on, just like performing at that weight, training at that weight, and sort of staying in and around that. But yeah, looks like it's a lot more comfortable. That's the main thing. He does look a little bit more fleshy at that weight, but as long as it's functional and he can, you know, keep doing the business, and hopefully he can, you know, do things where he keeps on the outside and he keeps at range to a point where we don't have to see, what his chin's like against those bigger guys, up at Bridger/heavyweight. He's been calling out a few people afterwards. I mean, I like some of what I've been hearing. Some of it I still feel like it's a bit, maybe that's a bit of a fool's mission. But one thing I can't say about Lawrence Okolie is that he's never really been afraid to call people's names. So I give him maximum respect for that. And like I said, one round, can't take a huge amount from it, but it was a great performance for what we saw. So yeah, big up to Lawrence Okolie and the rest of the team, and hopefully this is the start of a new Okolie, start of a new style that is a lot more palatable to the public, and he gets what he deserves moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also saw the call outs, and yeah, you know what? You have to be completely and utterly in belief that you are capable of doing the things that he's called. If you haven't got that self-belief, you're in the wrong sport. You really are. If you think to yourself, I have to shackle myself to staying in one division or staying with one set level of opponent, you're in the wrong sport. Because I had that when I was an amateur. I literally had that. I was at the point where, okay, the guy who's in front of me in my gym is the ABA national champion 2 times in a row. And therefore, and the guys who are at the world championship level, the world champion is a man who I wouldn't wish to see on any given Sunday. So without having in my head the belief that A, I can get past that guy in my own gym, and B, the guy at the top of the tree in my weight division is someone I can hope to reach to. I think I've got the capabilities to get there. I'm in the wrong sport if I don't have that thought. So I went and I decided not to do it. I know I was good because the guy who was in my gym ahead of me, who I sparred every day, would become a world champion. That 2-time ABA champion. So if I know I could run with him, I could, spar with him, but I didn't have that belief. So from a mentality perspective, I've got a kid that just won the national ABA schoolboy championship. And already in his head is world championship. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. You should be thinking, I can do everything I can see in my head. So
the one thing I will say about the call outs, and to be fair, he's never really been shy to call a name, but the one caveat I will give on the call outs I've heard, minus the Dillian White one, which he didn't, that name was put to him more than he actually asked for it. He said, obviously, yeah, there's bad blood there, so he would like that for his own personal reasons. But everyone that he did call out was firmly on the Saudi bag. So there could have been a bit of opportunistic sort of thoughts as to why they was on the Joseph Parkers, the Alexander Usyks. We know where they're firmly established. I didn't hear any Agit Caballeros. I didn't hear any Joe Joyces. I didn't hear Martin Okolie or these guys. So, but yeah, I hear it. Obviously, I guess being a world champion of sorts, maybe you do want to get to the guys that are in sort of that top 4, top 5. But yeah, I thought I'd throw that there as a tiny little caveat. But yes, I respect the I respect the energy. And like I said, if this parlays itself into a much more fan friendly Lawrence Okolie, then I'm all for it. Win, lose or draw. It's all right for you to lose as long as you don't lose in a stinker. And if you win and you win well, because I remember before he used to say, yes, I know some of these fights ain't that entertaining, but I'm still winning. And he had this mentality of, as long as I win, it doesn't matter how I look. Now that the O's gone, I guess he realizes that's not really the case, because the pay in public, and the people that are giving you the paydays, essentially, they're going to demand more. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's see what happens moving forward.
Yeah, and in regard to being an unattractive draw at the box office, so to speak, we all know the story of Johnny Nelson. Johnny Nelson used to stink a place out, and then he had to change. And when he changed, we suddenly fell in love with the new and improved Johnny Nelson. So yeah, there is an arc where we can see potential for Lawrence to become all that he can be.
All right, where do you want to take it next?
I want to drop in that quick one, the Dina Thorslund fight. Do you want to just do that one quickly?
All right, yeah.
All right, I'll let you talk while it's going on.
Okay, so Dina Thorslund versus Serene Satine, or Serene, as her full name is. Turkey v Denmark. Satine is a pressure fighter, on the front foot, like in your face, punches in bunches type person. 26 years old. Dina Thorslund, 30. But Dina is a lot more flexible as an opponent. Whereas, as you can see, Satine is literally just sort of throwing shots like left, right, and center. She started off the fight well doing that, but whereas Dina is very much, she can box on the inside, she can move, she can she can time people, she can box on the outside, she can be the aggressor, she can be the defender. Whereas Satine has only kind of got one gear, and that's forward, and it's very predictable. So first couple rounds, they was competitive, but for the majority of the time, Thorslund was winning the exchanges. She would be last in every exchange. Sometimes she would even be first, as you can kind of see there. And it got to a point where, in sort of rounds 6, 7, 8 onwards, you could kind of see Satine wilting a bit, and she was still obviously throwing the punches, but Thorslund was definitely on the front foot, kind of pushing her back, and then Satine just had arm punches. As you can see there, she kind of had the will and the fight be out of her. Dina Thorslund, just look, she is the apex predator of the bantamweight division, still unified. She's looking for a belt in her next fight. The only titleist that I think has who is free is Mio Yoshida, the lady that beat Ebony Bridges in the last fight. You've got Shanika Johnson, but I do believe that she's going to be having a rematch with Nina Hughes for that WBA title. So she's probably off the table for now. But yeah, I know Dina Thorslund said she either gets a third belt at the weight, or she gets a third belt at a weight. So that means that's basically her saying that she's prepared to move up to get a belt if she needs to. Possibly even move down. I don't know. I don't know if she could make 115, but she could definitely move up, back up to super bantam, maybe even featherweight if there's opportunities. But yeah, she is, yeah, like I said, apex predator. 120, 118, 122. She'd be a problem as well, and 126 she'd be a problem. One of the best out there in those divisions, and it is a very stacked division. So to be a unified champion, undefeated, she's definitely not one of those people that's just fighting in Denmark, taking on no hope. But she's actually taking on like the best there is out there outside of the champions. And she's the one obviously she was calling for the fights with the previous champions, and just couldn't get them in the ring. Hopefully now she can with the next two. And I reckon the only person that really gives her big trouble will be Shanika Johnson, because they have very similar fighting styles, and Shanika's a bit younger, bit taller, got range. Whereas Mio, I think, is a lot more tailor made for her. So yeah, if she can get that unification, then we could be looking at another another unification / another undisputed champion within the next year and a half. Guess we just got to wait and see. But yeah, that was my thoughts on the fight. It was a fun fight. Just have to, she just got to obviously keep the momentum up, and we'll see when her next fight is and who she manages to get in the ring.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, just going back a quick point from Philip. was to say I still want to see Okolie versus Riakporhe, but I know we're not going to get it now. Have patience, Philip. Have patience. That could come down the road because it's a domestic fight with a huge amount of intrigue. So as a result of that, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that at some point in time. Let's not forget, Richard Riakporhe himself probably won't stay at cruiserweight for much longer. So I could see that matchup happening somewhere in the future. Right, so we go on to Saturday night's card from from Canada, which was headlined by Christian and Billy. Oh, pressed the button by accident. Sorry. Christian and Billy versus Mark Heffron. But I'm going to start with a quick watch of the destructive nature of Arslan Makhmudov, who was fighting this guy Rosansvin or something like that. Makhmudov obviously coming back from his loss to Ajit Kabayel, and what a way to come back. Don't see that every day. He knocked the man out the ring. I actually like Makhmudov because he does actually have some very good boxing skills. He was just outworked by Ajit Kabayel, and Ajit has now proved himself to be more than a formidable operator at the heavyweight division. But I do believe that Makhmudov will be a problem for a lot of fighters at heavyweight. He's obviously on the comeback trail already. And yeah, you'd be remiss if you thought that, he's a soft touch, because there's no way he's a soft touch. He's built like an absolute brick, house. He carries thunder in both hands. So it will be interesting to see, how his comeback continues and who he gets next to put him back in amongst the top rankings. Any thoughts on that one, Base? Cool. So we'll move straight into the Christian and Billy versus Mark Heffron fight. France versus Great Britain. Obviously, Mark Heffron now, has had his taste of a few defeats. Not quite the name that he used to be, and Christian and Billy made short work of him. Heffron came out, trying to box, but what you get with Christian and Billy, a very hard, strong puncher. I love the way he mixes between body and head. And as you can see there, the stab to the body, the hook to the head, and then the body shot straight after was the finisher. He's undoubtedly one of the stars of the middleweight division right now. Will be very much a big fight when he fights Derenchenko, which I believe is penciled in for August. So that's going to be a good fight to look forward to. As you can see, good body and head work from Mbili. Such a huge puncher. Very much reminds me of a small, light Mike Tyson. Great performance from Christian. Your thoughts, Base?
No thoughts. Wasn't worth watching, to be honest. Wasn't worth any thoughts.
Okay, cool. So, as I said, he's already been lined up for August date with Derenchenko. So that moves us into the Matchroom card that took place here in the UK. And we will start this off with Paddy Donovan versus Lewis Ritson. I'll let you do the honors on this one if you don't mind.
No, but I told you I've got no interest in this fight.
Okay, in that case, I guess I'm I'm doing the honors here. So this was for the WBA Continental title. As you can see, there was a fair bit of antagonism going on at the pre-fight. Paddy Donovan coming in actually slightly lighter than Lewis Ritson. Tried to box nicely in the early days. Southpaw Paddy in the all white shorts. As you can see, he's moving around Lewis Ritson, establishing distance with his jab. And then flies that quick uppercut. Trademark for Paddy Donovan. Very fast hands. You know, moves around his opponent really well. Nice duck underneath the hook there of Ritson. And then shooting that backhand. There you go again. The double jab on the right, or the double jab on the left, as it is for him, for the southpaw. Nice work up and down from Donovan. Using that stabbing right hand as a key guide, and then using it to set up his more his harder backhand left hand. This is a fight that was very interesting because Lewis Ritson, you know, he came to fight. Obviously, he got a little bit animated at the weigh-in, and as the fight progressed, he got into it a little bit more. Started to try to walk down Paddy Donovan. Started throwing his own combinations to try and upset the rhythm of Paddy Donovan. But Donovan, you know, sharp shooter that he is, bided his time really well. And as you see here, he's now on the front foot. He's backing up Ritson, and he's firing off with great combinations of uppercuts and hooks. He's now gone away from setting everything up with a jab. He's now standing in front of Ritson and saying, right, now I'm going to take you out. And that's what he proceeded to do. And there's the end.
Good old Howard Foster. Yeah, I thought to give my very brief 2 pence, because I saw the last half of this fight. The only good thing about this fight for me is that I called it perfectly in terms of the round it would end. I did say it would be a 9th round TKO stoppage, and that's what it was. Outside of that, I took nothing else from it. Lewis Ritson's a former lightweight, you know, now fighting up at welterweight for this opportunity. I don't know if he's going to stay up there, if he's going to move back down. Paddy Donovan, he's okay, but he hasn't impressed me since he's turned pro. Every fight I've seen of his, I'm not, you know, there's nothing about him that I particularly I'm interested in. The fight was boring. It wasn't as boring as the Gary Cully fight, but it was boring up until that very last round. I didn't bother go back to finish watching it. Yeah. The whole card, if like I said, to be totally honest, outside of the main event, the whole card was a letdown. And that doesn't usually happen these days with Matchroom cards. You can normally find something good on the undercard. But yeah, this one to me, like if it wasn't for the main event and it wasn't for the fact it was in Leeds, yeah, I would have called it a dud. To be totally honest, I wasn't impressed with any of it.
Cool. All right. So we'll move on. You mentioned Gary Cully briefly. He did have a win, unanimous decision over Francesco Patera. Had a fairly easy night's work for the up-and-coming youngster Giorgio Vizioli, who was 2-0. He got a stoppage, fourth round stoppage over Sergio Odubai. We'll go on to the Chevon Clark versus Ellis Zorro fight next.
All right. This is where I can cook.
Mm-hmm.
And even this fight, I'm going to be real, this fight disappointed me. But again, I did pick Chev Clark and I did pick knockout in the 8th round. So large up to me for my undercard predictions this week. They were the only ones I got right. Or at least the method. Now, that being said, this fight, The reason I figured it would play out that way is because Ellis is a sort of a good, like, pure boxer slash boxer puncher, but he needs some time, some range, and some movement to be able to do what he's doing. So when he had sort of Chev kind of more backed off, he was able to initiate he was able to sort of initiate his jab, almost try to walk Chev onto certain shots at times. And when he had time to sort of think about things, he was able to sort of get off some decent work. But every time that Chev was sort of close to him, Ellis isn't a very reactive fighter. He has to sort of be able to think about what he's going to do. He doesn't just throw punches naturally. Sort of like he has to think what punch he's going to throw based on what you're doing in front of him. So every time that Chev closed the distance quickly, I won't say that Ellis got. I'm not going to say that he, like, got flustered or he got scared or whatever, but he would initiate those clinches like quite early to nullify the work that Chev Clark could potentially do. And Chev also took a long time to warm into this fight. So even when he was trying to close distance, like, there's a lot of those kind of shots, he wasn't really able to get into range. He wasn't able to let go of those combinations before he got caught in the clinches. So both guys were a little bit rusty. Ellis was more cautious, whereas Chev just seemed very rusty trying to be able to get into the pocket. But my thoughts on why I felt the fight would go the way it would go is because I felt that Ellis would be able to do well from range early on and be able to kind of just keep Chev honest, but in that same moment he's going to have to work, and he's going to have to sort of keep working up until such a point where Chev just plows forward and gets on the inside, and obviously starts to work a bit more on the inside, which then makes Ellis have to readjust and have to almost like protect himself, shell up a bit, and things like that. So that's kind of how I thought it would go. And then we got to sort of round 6, round 7 is where it started to become a bit looser. And then obviously in round 8, both guys landed some decent shots, but we saw there what happened with the initial first shot. Ellis caught Chev, but Chev caught him big over the top, which buckled him back a little bit. Then Ellis, rather than getting into a defensive stance, he decided to beckon Chev on, like, in almost like the macho thing. So he did that obviously because he was hurt, thought maybe I can catch him as he's coming in. But by that point, Chev just launched that right hand, that straight right down the pipe, didn't even set it up. And Ellis wasn't expecting to see that straight away. And that just kind of took the legs away from him. And yeah, down he went, couldn't recover, couldn't beat the count, unfortunately, and sort of got KO'd. It's a shame because, Ellis is, I feel like the only bad thing about Zorro is he hasn't really been allowed to kind of get the necessary building fights that he needs, because he hasn't had that big amateur career. Obviously, you take that, you'll take a Jayapataya opportunity because it's big money, but then from there, you can't even go back to like English level title contention or WBO continental, and like you can't really go back down there to try and learn your craft now, because you're at a certain pay grade and you're at a certain point where they're only going to want to, for you to even make money, now that maybe people don't think that you're going to be the next thing anymore, or going to be that guy for the only way you're going to get those fights now is they're always going to be hard fights. So I think that while I do think that Ellis Zorro can recover, he can rebuild to a certain point, I don't think he's going to be given the chance to rebuild in the necessary type of fights. I feel like he's just going to kind of be thrown into like hard fight after hard fight from now on. So, which is not something I want for him on a personal level, obviously knowing him and the things like that. I don't know if how much more maybe he can get from the game at this stage. Maybe it might be an idea at this point to potentially think about moving away from Queensbury and Matchroom and those, and seeing if we can get maybe a Hennessy or a Vossaman to Channel 5, or GBM Sports, and maybe just be able to go back sort of to the drawing board and rebuild for like a year, maybe 3 or 4 easier fights, not easy, but easier, where we can just learn some things, pick up some stuff, and kind of go again for another surge. But yeah, like I say, if he stays with Queensbury now, I can only see it being similar. He's gonna just get kind of put in there with guys. He's gonna sort of be the opponent now for the rest of his time there. And like I said, from a personal perspective, that's not kind of what I want for him. But he's not at the level of these others, unfortunately. Not right now, anyway. So yeah, he's got some contemplating to do, some thinking to do. But I wish him all the best with what he does moving forward. And in terms of Chev Clark, big up to Chev. Man like C4, he did unload that, the bomb. It detonated. It caused a mass explosion. And he said that whoever wants it can come get it, because he said he's winning that British outright. So that guarantees that he's looking for at least another 2 more fights at British, not even so much British level, but against the British opposition. So I would assume Vidal Riley will be the next guy, and then after that, maybe I don't know, maybe Jack Massey might want a shot at the title or something. It'll be interesting. But yeah, shout out to Chev Clark, and I'm interested to see what he does moving forward. But again, he hasn't necessarily got a huge amount of time on his hands, so whatever he wants to do, he's got to make sure he gets a move on, and hopefully he can be back out again in the next 2-3 months. Yeah, what was your thoughts?
Okay, so my thoughts were, this was a under par Chev Clark. First 4 rounds, to me, I gave them all to Ellis Zorro. I know Ellis has been working with a fabulous coach, Larry Ekondale. I know Larry very well, sparred many rounds with Larry. He's doing great work as a coach now himself. One of the best fighters I've ever shared a ring with, quite honestly. But I've seen some of the work behind closed doors with Larry, and I was very interested to see how Ellis was going to operate, having had a bit more time to work with Larry coming into this fight. And I was pretty impressed for 4 rounds. But Chev just did not seem to have any pop. He just seemed to lack, he couldn't establish a jab. His mission wild shots like that one that we just saw. And in between all of that, you saw the confidence growing from Ellis. You see that he's able to use his jab. He's got obviously the longer arms and able to utilize his jab better, and then occasionally throw an uppercut, to the point that, I was getting worried about, whether Chev would be able to turn the trajectory of the fight. But lo and behold, round 5, end of round 4, round 5, Chev, it just seemed like Ellis seemed to, lose his way. And instead of using his jab and using a distance, he ends up in this situation you can see now, where he's holding on. And anytime you get in a situation with a shorter, harder puncher, where you're there and he's right in front of you, it doesn't bode well. And knowing that Chev Clark is a dangerous puncher with that kind of bomb, standing dead central right in front of your target, it was only going to end one way. And obviously, as you mentioned, Base, he got caught flush with a great right hand by Chev. And then he did the criminal mistake of standing against the rope, beckoning his man on to come in, and just got caught. And he was very lucky in a way that the shots that came after the right didn't catch him, because that could have been very, very bad for him. But yeah, I have got a lot of hope that Ellis can come back. I happen to know one of my colleagues, Simon, very good friend of Ellis. I've met Ellis before. He's very approachable kind of guy. He's obviously a blue borough boy. So, it would be nice to see him make a comeback, especially if he can improve on those aspects of the game that we saw in the first 4 rounds. He does need to ensure that he can keep that going for the full duration. So it will be interesting to see where he goes from here. The rebuilding stage starts now. But as far as Chev is concerned, done well, did what he had to do, did what most people kind of expected he was going to do, but didn't look good in those first 4 rounds. I was actually listening to the watch-along from Spencer and Tunde, and Spence thought something was wrong as well in those early rounds. The fights that you mentioned for Chev, I think they're winnable fights before you step up to the world level. But yeah, he's gonna need to improve on those early rounds. He's gonna need to work out how he can be more effective and not be outboxed by the taller, rangier fighters, which most of the time the opposition is.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I was saying, I have on a personal level, both guys. I'm cool with both guys. Ellis and myself actually go way back. Not necessarily like true blood friends like that, but obviously he is like the best friend of one of my younger cousins. So I always root for him to do well. It's been unfortunate that his last 2 fights have been against people that also I either know on some level, or I just know that aren't, he wasn't quite ready for those yet. And maybe the thing is, maybe he would have actually been ready and able to actually beat Chev had he had enough time from the Opataya fight, or if he never had the Opataya fight and had other fights instead, potentially it could have been a different story. But yeah, as obviously Anthony Mackin said, he looks like he might have some PTSD from the Opataya knockout. It could that could be a case. Maybe one of those shots hits you, and then that's what the next thing you think about is what happened to you there, and it's hard to sort of get out of your own head. I don't know. But as I said, I hope he can kind of, like I said, parlay himself to like a GBM Sports or a Hennessy Sports or a Rosserman or something, and get a couple of easier touches to come back, just to build back up the confidence to work more with his trainer, and do his rebuild from there. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on that. And yeah, as Alex said, obviously you put up nice side step to the right to change the angle. Yeah, I don't think he was expecting that. I think he was expecting that shot to come off of the jab. So when it came straight and there was no setup to it, I think that shocked him. So, all right, where do you want to take it next? Are we doing main event?
We're there, mate. We're there at the main event.
All right. Well, go for it. Give us your take, because I know me and you have differing scorecards for this. So you start.
Okay, so the rematch, slightly older, taller Josh Taylor up against the younger, hungrier in my eyes, Jack Catterall. Obviously, the rematch, which most people thought Jack had won comfortably. But the worrying going into this fight for me was I honestly felt that, it was going to be one fight at the weight too many for Josh Taylor. We go back to some of the things that went well in the first fight for Jack Catterall were repeated in this fight, and one of them is the jab. It just seems to have the number for Josh Taylor with the jab, and you'll see it coming up in certain points where his jab just goes right through Josh Taylor's guard, and he does the triple jab. For any of my youngsters watching, use of the jab is so important. Keeping your opponent off balance, and he uses the jab well. You'll see the double jab on the left, the triple jab on the left come through and hit Taylor bang on. and he used that to amass early rounds. The scorecards I could see, I've got them in front of me. You know, most people see that he won most of the first 6 rounds. The first round that Taylor won unanimously was the 7th. I know BaseDaKID gave him the 3rd, as did one of the other refs. But most people saw Catterall as winning the first 6 rounds before Taylor got in and started his huge comeback in round 7. As you see there, the jab again, double jab, the triple jab, working well to the head of Josh Taylor. And he just seemed to be controlling the action. He seemed to know when he wanted to have action, when he wanted to stand back and take a break. As you can see there, he's able to stand in the range of Josh and wait for him to throw a body shot and then come back with his own shots. He was almost willing Josh to come in at certain points and see, you know, look, there's nothing you've got that I can't take. And he would stand there, take the shots, and then fire back with his own counter shots. And when he fired back, he often fired back more than what Josh would have given. And that seemed to be the early going. Catterall just dominating and commanding the way in which the fight was done. His work rate was better than Josh. His accuracy was better than Josh. Round 7, as I said, was the round where Josh came back into it big, and he was able to back up Jack with very big shots to body and head. He was very much on the front foot in those 7th, 8th rounds, which again, the 8th round, 2 of the judges gave that to Catterall. I gave that to Taylor. I know you did. And then basically 9 and 10, I gave that to Catterall. 9, 10, and 11 to Catterall. 2 of the judges gave 10 to Taylor. Catterall won unanimously, round 11 by everybody. And then round 12 was split. 2 judges gave it Taylor. 1 gave it to Catterall. I know you gave it to Catterall. But overall, there was a lot of, obviously, we saw the rant from Bob Arum at the end of the fight when he came in and he ranted about how the judges' decisions were so gregoriously wrong. You had it 117, 111. 2 of the other judges gave it the same. And the 3rd judge gave it 116, 130. I thought 116, 130 was a more accurate scorecard. I did feel that 117, 111 was a little bit on the wide side. I looked at your rounds, Base. Yeah, I couldn't give Catterall all of the rounds that you gave him. I thought Taylor had at least 1 or 2 extra rounds, but it's subjective, and if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. I do feel that Josh Taylor at the end, although he was able to last a distance and come on strong at the end, I feel like he'd given away too much of the early rounds. I thought that, he just didn't have... I think he was waiting his time. It appeared to me like he was waiting to, unleash. So, he seemed to be on sort of management of his engine so that he wouldn't wear himself out if he went for it early doors. And that played into the hands of Jack Catterall, who was just steady the whole fight, like a metronome, just kept going at him all the time. And subsequently, he wins rounds, not only the first 6, but, for some 3 or 4 of the last 4 rounds as well. What else have I got? I feel that's a good win for Jack. He obviously called out Teofimo Lopez, my guy, to take over. I think that was a shout maybe a little bit too loud. But, it's a stacked division. And he has to, as I said earlier, you have to feel that you can beat any and everybody. It will be interesting where he goes now, who they find for him. But, I do feel like you know, has he got what it takes to beat one of the killers like Teofimo or Subriel Matias? I'm not sure. What's your thoughts?
Right. So, yeah, look, with regards to the scorecards, I had the exact same scorecard as Mark Bates. So I had no issues with that. Obviously, I scored it the same way he did. There was a lot of rounds where, to me, the rounds were extremely like competitive, and in some cases they were close. There were a couple of swing rounds in there, and there's a couple of rounds where I was like, do I give this to Taylor or do I give it to Catterall? Now, obviously, you got to bear in mind, I predicted that Josh Taylor was going to win this fight. So I had every reason to score all the close rounds in the fight to Josh Taylor. The issue I had is that even though he was pressing the action in most of the rounds, he wasn't letting his hands go. He was walking forward with a high guard and then not doing anything unless Jack Catterall was basically right in front of him, not prepared to move. He wasn't throwing the jab out. He wasn't landing to the body consistently. He wasn't pushing him back behind the jab. He was literally just like walking into distance and then standing still when he got right in front of Jack Catterall. Now I know some of that is because I guess he's trying to get the right angle and make sure that he doesn't miss a shot and get countered. But there was too much hesitancy from him in my mind, especially in those middle and some of the very late rounds. He started the fight horribly, to be honest. Even though some people did give him the second, I felt the second was, yeah, it was a bit of a swing round, but it was a bit of a nothing round. Nothing really happened. But first round, Jack Catterall established clear dominance. Third round was a very good round for Josh Taylor. I feel like he took that one. Not hugely, but he managed to do just enough in that one. But then rounds 4, 5, and 6, he got pretty much dominated in those rounds behind that stiff double jab by Catterall, sometimes the triple jab. Sometimes he had him flinching on shots like he did just there, had him sort of backing up through some overhand shots that really sort of kind of wobbled Josh Taylor. And then when Taylor would throw shots, like you can see there, a lot of them just either weren't hitting, they weren't hitting the target, or they were being blocked by the arm of Jack Catterall. So that's why a lot of those rounds to me was all Catterall rounds. Then round 7 and round 8 to me were very clear Josh Taylor rounds. He got into his ascendancy, and I thought, oh, he's about to take this fight over. And Jack Catterall looked as if he was starting to get tired. He looked like he was having to visibly take sustained breaks in the rounds, moving around, trying to just gasp for air. So I thought, oh, maybe Josh Taylor's about to get back into this one and move, move the needle, keep pushing Jack Catterall back, keep making him have to work, which is what he doesn't want to do, being a pure boxer, and just basically get on top in the fight and sort of just take it over from there. But after that, Jack Catterall very succinctly in that 9th round just stole the momentum back from Josh Taylor, and then Taylor just did things just like that, just being on the inside but not throwing enough shots, just being in his proximity and not saying anything, not doing anything to affect change. Yeah, he's moving forward, and Catterall is the one that's moving around and trying to keep the distance, and obviously not really wanting to engage in that mode. But I just didn't feel that Josh was doing enough. Then we got I think it was the 10th round. And to me, I thought, oh, Josh Taylor's coming back into this one. He looks like he's got that second wind. And then he gets caught with a massive left hook in the 10th. And I think he also got caught with another massive one in the 11th as well. Just to the point where it stopped all of his momentum. And even though he was doing good work before that happened, in those particular rounds, that just halted everything and turned it back in Jack Catterall's favor. So while there were those rounds he had sustained success, he still wasn't like, there was nothing clean really landing from him for you to say, okay, yeah, it's definitely his round. And it just, like Jack Catterall ultimately he just sort of nicked some of them off of maybe one or two more clean, effective, eye-catching shots. And then in some of the others, it was just due to the shots actually landing, whereas Josh Taylor's weren't, even though he was, aggression around the ring, and not a lot of it was as effective as it should have been. And then in round 12, yeah, Jack Catterall coasted. Maybe you can make an argument and say that you could give it to Josh Taylor, but again, he just wasn't landing. Like there was nothing that was really getting through clean. And then every time he would get through clean, he would get answered, and it looked like he was the one being rocked by the shot that was coming back. So in all of those rounds, that's sort of how I had ended up having it scored to Catterall. Even like I said, there was a couple rounds I could have given them to Josh Taylor if I really wanted to, but I just don't think he did enough to win them. I think Catterall just edged them, even though the scorecard itself was wide. Yes, it maybe doesn't show how competitive the fight was, but unfortunately, sometimes the scorecards can't show you how competitive a fight is, because it can be competitive, but Taylor just wasn't winning the rounds, and Catterall was. And when you score it as 12 mini fights as opposed to one big fight, that's what you see, unfortunately. So yeah, I've got no issue with obviously 111, 117, as that's the same card that I had. Of course, I wouldn't see anything wrong with that, especially when it was exactly the same as one of the judges' cards. For everyone obviously saying, oh yeah, the cards were a bit wide. Like I said, there's a couple rounds. All right, cool. Swing them the other way. That's fine. If you really want to, one or two rounds the other way. You can't find 6 rounds to give Josh Taylor. So the right guy did win. And whether you think it was wide or not, that's maybe, like you said, down to personal preference, down to what you necessarily think is was more effective in that particular moment. The person throwing a lot but not landing much, or the person not really throwing much, getting moved about but is landing everything, eye-catching and visibly hurting his opponent when he's doing it. So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on it. It was the funny thing is, and I said this on the roundtable yesterday, this fight was better than the first fight, a lot more competitive than the first fight, but actually was a lot wider on the scorecards, in my opinion. Because I remember the first time I watched the first fight, I think I scored it like 116, 110. And then I remember I watched it back, and I think I ended up having it actually like it was like well, technically it would have been 110, 116. Then I had it 112, 113 the second time. So I had it really close. Whereas this one, I didn't have close at all. But this was a much more competitive and enjoyable fight than the first one was. So just a bit crazy how that kind of worked out. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think maybe they should think about a trilogy, not in the immediate future. Let Josh Taylor get a couple wins under his belt at a new weight. He needs to move up, whether he moves up to Garcia weight or full-blown welterweight, get some wins up there. See what Jack Catterall can do in and around 140 if he wants to stay here for a little bit longer. Then he can move up to Garcia weight, or welterweight in like maybe sort of 12 months time, after he's had another 2 fights or so, maybe 2-3 fights, 18 months. Then they can run it back. Maybe they can end their careers with a trilogy and have that as their sort of swan song each, and it will be like their big rivalry, and who bested the other one kind of thing. That would be, to me, a good fitting end to both guys' careers. But yeah, I'd like to see it again, but I'm not in any huge rush to see it again. And technically, even though it's 1-1, a lot of people do see it as 2-0. Maybe Jack Catterall has no interest in it. But it would be, I feel like it's the kind of fight, the third time it will probably catch fire more than this one did, and definitely a lot more than the first one did. But yeah, good performance by Jack Catterall, deserved winner. I hope he gets some decent opportunities moving forward, and I'm actually keen to see what Josh Taylor does moving forward. Being a fellow Capricorn like myself, he's had a bit of a fall from grace, but I reckon he can get back there with the right ingredients. So yeah, let's wait and see. Okay, so Philip says his scorecard was 116, 112 to Catterall. Okay, so yeah, just one round off of mine. Alexander says I had it a little closer than the judges, but it was still clearly Catterall's win. Yeah. Would it be wrong to say Catterall has got the best jab in the division? I can't say it'd be right, but I don't know how wrong it would be. I still actually think that Devin Haney's got a better jab than him.
That's the name, Base. That's the name. Devin Haney's jab is, to me, a better jab. He has a very good jab, Jack Catterall, but I think the Devin Haney with the footwork. One of the things that I actually wrote it down to mention it. Jack Catterall's footwork is not that good because he's a wide stance boxer. But what he does is he finds himself stood with his feet crossed very often. And he loses power sometimes on his punches because of the positioning of his feet. There was a point where he threw a right hand, but because his back foot was crossed and off the floor, he lost all power in it. And it was like, this seems to be a recurring theme with Jack Catterall, is the footwork finds itself sometimes in a poor place. Whereas anyone who's listened to me will tell you, I feel Devin Haney has some of the best footwork. I mean, the masterclasses over George Kambosos, I was salivating at the way he boxed. His jab combined with his footwork mean that his jab to me is far more effective than Jack's.
I do. The only person who I think actually may have a better jab than Devin Haney in the 140 division is actually Richardson Hitchens. His jab is very, very good, very spearing, and I think his footwork is on par, if not better, than Haney's as well. So that fight there would be interesting. But yeah, that's to answer Philip's question there. And lastly, Anthony Macken says Catterall is talented, probably one of the most talented in the division. I think his next fight needs to be for a world title. He's got talent. I don't know if I could say he's one of the most talented in the division. I think he's been a bit favorable recently, and some of his recent fights, like if you think he's got talent, he shouldn't be, I'm not going to say struggling, but, laboring to, yes, clear victories. But, if he's got that much talent, then it should look a lot cleaner. Like if you think of Haney Prograis, yes, okay, he didn't knock him out, but that's a clear, clean victory. If you think of Teofimo and Josh Taylor, that's a very clean victory compared to what Catterall did. Even Arnold Barboza against what's his name, Jose Pedraza, for instance, like very clean. Those to me would signify more. So I don't know how much. I wouldn't say he's one of the more talented. I think he's got talent, and he's in a moment where he's not favorable matchmaking, but he's just got matchmaking that is easier for him. I think I'd put it that way. And shout out to Reese Jones, who just joined us. It says Teofimo is the only world champ that Catterall can beat. I think he could beat Isaac Cruz as well, to be honest. Those are the two that I'd give him. I don't think Pitbull, but I think Pitbull's too small to beat him. But yeah, Haney and Matthias, I think he loses to both of those. But yeah, Tony, you got anything more you want to add before we close off for the night?
No. Obviously, Base will be probably on his own next week because I'll be flying back from Riyadh. I might squeeze him to sort of drop in prior. I will probably upload my footage for you to utilize, Base. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend. I've got my Craig Richard t-shirt ready to support Craig. I know Danny's out there already, and I've seen them working together, just finishing up. Obviously the grand arrivals were this evening, but yeah, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Socials time. Yeah,
give them the socials.
So, guys, you can catch me, and all my pictures from Riyadh will be available on my Instagram account, which is Pugilistboy, the Pugilistboy. I'm also on Twitter X and YouTube just as Pugilistboy.
As for me, as you guys can see, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual, coming up there. Instagram, Twittex, and Threads, BaseDaKID, and then Twittex is B_A_S_E, or you can just type in BaseDaKID, and I think I am the first one that shows up. Also now, after getting whipped by October Red for the last year, I've got the TikTok. The TikTok is in effect. It's TikToking, as they say, and that is at basedakid.thc. So yeah, Tango Hotel Charlie. Give it a watch, give it a follow. Anytime I do the videos, I'll be uploading little bits from those to the channel. So yeah, shout out to you guys. Make sure you do go and check that. I will be on the casual stream tomorrow. It might be a little later than usual, rather than 7:30. It might be about 8:30. Just gotta sort out some things during the day, and then yeah, episodes maybe Thursday, basis picks Friday. You guys know the routine. It might be a very extended one, and actually there may be a survey. We might do a survey on the casual stream tomorrow to determine how we do basis picks, whether we do it as a live stream as we've done previously, or whether we do it as a normal video. But that's all for then. Thank you guys very much for watching. Monday Night Smoke will be back. Hold on one sec. Monday Night Smoke will be back next week, Monday. The breakdown will always be here. And like I say, if I got to do it by myself, that'll be a case I might draft in a special replacement, but I'll keep that hush hush for now. What have you got, Tony?
Yeah, it was just a quick one, Base, to say, oh my God, it's gone. Oh my goodness. What was I just about to say? Oh, is there a watch along? Are you doing a watch along? Or are
yes,
you
there will be a
with...
watch along on I haven't set it up yet, but yes, there will be a watch along for the entire card, or at least the entire 5v5 portion of the card. I need to find out what time it all starts, but yes, there will be a watch along. I will be here for 5 hours or however long it lasts. It won't be as long as the Day of Reckoning watch along I done, but it will be there. It will be a lengthy one.
Great. So, guys, if you're looking for some fantastic commentary, then you know where to go. Check out BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual, on YouTube for
All right,
his
ladies and gentlemen,
live watch along.
thank you very much. We will catch you next week. Well, I will catch you next week. Tony will catch you the week after. But safe travels, Tony, and enjoy Riyadh. And yeah, maybe next time I'll be in attendance. But until then, peace.
Peace.